What's up, everybody? This particular rod bending series, as you could already tell, is featuring Swimbait rods. That's right. We're going to focus on some of our most popular Swimbait rods and some new ones we just added. Swimbait's, no lie, about, just in full transparency, has not been an early focus of Omnia Fishing. I think any of you that are currently our customers know that. It's not on purpose. I mean, it was on purpose just because we needed to fill out a lot of other categories first. We're a young company. As we start scaling up, Swimbaits is kind of tough, right? You can get regionally specific. A lot of the most popular stuff is really hard to get in small quantities, garage guys, and we want to support that style of Swimbaits too. So I think to start it all off, we're probably going to be we're going to service the Swimbait community better by focusing on the durable side of things. By durables in our world and retail speak, that's the rods and your reels, right? Line, the rods, the reels, that kind of stuff. So we're going to focus on, we're just getting that kicked off. Obviously, with our major suppliers like your Daiwa, Shimano's, St. Croix, G-Limit, all those brands like that, we're going to carry their bigger Swimbait stuff. But we know that in that Swimbait community, a lot of it gets pretty technical, and there's specific Swimbait manufacturers out there, and none bigger than these guys right here, Leviathan. Leviathan was recommended to me as I did my research on this, plus our buyer, Jacob, some other people that work here at Omnia. This brand seemed to have an extremely popular following, and I can tell why right away. I'm not just saying that. Everybody here was super impressed. There's a couple models of these that feel lighter, crisper, and more alive than some of my bass fishing rods, and I mean that, or some of my traditional bass fishing rods, I should say. Not the Swimbait rods aren't bass fishing rods, but 8-footers are pretty long rods for us, especially in e-commerce to ship around. We're going to have a 7.9 finesse model here soon that we'll be bending for you, but right now we're going to kick it off with this one here. Why? Because it's got the coolest name in the world. It's called the Dirty Dragon. That's right. The Dirty Dragon here from Leviathan is an 8-foot extra heavy Swimbait rod. This thing is rated up to 16 ounces. I'm going to tell you something that feels extremely underrated for this thing so far. It feels like I could just chuck 2-gallon jugs of milk all day long with this thing and have no problems. This thing's insanely powerful. I don't even know if it's going to bend down the wall, but we're going to go try and bend it anyway. But if you are a Swimbait angler that's looking for a rod that's going to handle those big, giant, oversized baits, this is the rod for you here at Omnia Fishing so far. This thing is absolutely a brute. But you know what? It doesn't feel that crazy big or heavy. It's 9.6 ounces, but they've got the big long handle on here. They balanced it beautifully. It's got a double locking system on the chuck up here to really lock that thing down, to lock your reel down, because this thing's going to be your power Swimbait rod. Let's go bend the Leviathan Dirty Dragon from the Omega Swimbait series. All right, we're here on the bend wall with the Leviathan Dirty Dragon from the Omega Swimbait series. These rods are made with North Fork Composite Blanks, which is Gary Loomis's new company. We're blank manufacturing. They're designed in Texas. And you could tell, this thing is serious. Here we go trying to bend it. And just like I imagined, this thing is stout. It has got tons and tons of power. I feel like I'm going to rip the hook attachment we tie our line off to on this. I feel like I'm going to rip it out of the ground, even bending it like that. And I've got to put my body into this. This is an extremely stout, powerful rod. Not going to load up and launch a bait like a traditional casting rod would. You're going to need the weight of that bait to do the flying for you. This feels like a lob casting kind of thing. I'm not an expert Swimbait fisherman by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I don't think I've thrown anything anywhere near the ratings at the top end of this thing in my life. So certainly not going to pretend I'm an expert in this, but I just wanted to give you guys an example on the big end of the rods we have here of how powerful and how stout these Swimbait rods can get. And I'm sure some of you that do fish Swimbaits understand the need for a rod with this kind of action and power. As you look here, this thing almost feels like a really, really fast action rod because it's really hard for me to even get to that middle part of the backbone there. Leaning into it here, it's hard to even get it back that far. But as you can see, as you bent it, if you did hook a giant fish or you had a really big bait on and you went to go cast a really super heavy bait, it does load all the way up. It's just that powerful that it takes a lot to get it there. But, on the bend wall, it looks like a really super fast killer jig rod in like 100 foot of water or something. This thing is a super sweet rod from Leviathan. They're not the cheapest, but man, they're made in the USA. They're technique specific built for all the different size swim baits out there, and they feel really high end in hand. If you're into swim bait fishing and you want to try something on the premium side of things, I think the price point on these is insanely impressive for what you're getting. So far, if I was jumping into this end of the pool, which I think I might be here soon, I'd definitely check these things out. I'm going to be an owner of one of these rods very soon. All right, now we're jumping right over to more of a price point swim bait rod, and that's because it's a volume seller for us here at Omnia Fishing. This one here is the Dobyns Fury. This one is a $7.95 swim bait SB. So $7.95 SB. It's rated from 1 to 5 ounces, so you're smaller end of the swim bait scale, but man, it feels light. I weighed it, it's 7.6 ounces, so it's 2 ounces lighter than much heavier, more powerful counterpart. Obviously, Dobyns has offerings in the heavier ranges and even higher end offerings on this, but we wanted to touch on this rod because this thing's coming in like around $130. It's insanely good value for what this rod is. It feels really nice in hand. It's light, feels light. It's balanced out very well. And let's face it, these rods usually tend to balance out all right because the handles are insanely long on swim bait rods, and you're putting big reels on them, so they don't get really tip heavy on you, even though they're super big, powerful rods. This one, though, like I said, we had to mention it because we sell a ton of them, and it's because if you're someone like me that deploys the swim bait very sparingly, like I don't do it a ton, right? I don't spend all day long swim bait fishing most of the time. I hope to change that here in the future, but most of the time it's a tool for an exact moment in time for me when I'm on the water. So I'm one of the people in this camp that would look for the best value I could. And this is a rod that's obviously shown to have that kind of value to a lot of anglers out there. Price point's incredible, and we have not seen these things come back at all. So obviously they're built very well. They're durable. They're handling the swim bait use they're getting. But they are rated on the lower end weight-wise as swim bait rods. So some of the more popular stuff that's out there, just big, pre-rigged soft swim baits, smaller glides, the mass-produced kind of glides and stuff like that. This rod would do that just fine. This type of stuff, honestly, that I'm fishing with. So this is the Dobyns Fury 795 SB. Let's go bend it and see how it does compared to the other swim bait rods on this list. All right, 795 SB from Dobyns in the Fury lineup because the Furies are really high volume sellers. That's why we're pointing this one out. As I pointed out before, I don't want anybody to think Dobyns doesn't make some of the higher end versions of their rods with these swim bait series to go up against some of the other rods they're bending. This one is an extreme value to us. There's a couple people that work here at Omnia that suggested we try this one because not only the sales volume, but they also think it's one of the better rods in the market for the money. And it's because this thing's versatile outside of swim bait fishing as well. That's why we really want to touch on this thing. This thing would be just fine throwing some other stuff other than swim baits as well, like big umbrella rigs and things like that as well. It's not overpoweringly heavy at all. It's not super long that you couldn't do other things with it as well. The action, as you see here, is definitely a little slower than the previous rod I bent, and that might just be due to power. It could just be this thing's a lot easier to bend because it's rated for those lower weights, hence why I think it's also a much more versatile rod. If you're looking to throw a giant plug like some like 10XD stuff, you could get away with that with this rod. Obviously, the umbrella rigs, like I said, and your smaller swim baits, some of your pre-rigged or like weedless rigged swim baits, like if you want to just throw like the freeloader or some of the ones you just put a big owner beast hook in it and stuff and you want it rigged up and in the boat rod locker, it seems like a big rod for that, but man, it's not too stout that you couldn't handle that. I think your landing percentage would be just fine on this. This is a great rod to have in your boat if you're not just a purist swim bait angler and you want a rod that could handle those bigger baits when you're in that scenario. Love the price point on it. Love the action of it. It definitely feels like a very versatile rod and a hell of a price point. Check out the Dobyns Fury 795 SB for your swim bait needs. Here's a unique one, and this one's been really popular, and we've been asked by customers for more rods like this one as well. And I've gotten even the swim bait manufacturer that I've mentioned that to mad at me when I say that. But it obviously seems to be a need for this style of swim bait rod. This one here is a Daiwa Tatula, but it's in a 7'3", so that doesn't sound that short in the regular world, but in the swim bait world, that's very short. It's still got that long swim bait handle on it, but it's shorter in length. It's a heavy power, but regular action. This thing's rated up to 4 ounces, which is definitely on the smaller side of the Swimbait rods. But this is a perfect rod for some of those accurate close quarters casting stuff that a lot of people are doing with swimbaits. You see a lot of people throwing like the Tiny Clash and the smaller style swimbaits, even the pre-rigged swimbaits and things like that, the soft style ones, I say, skipping docks, throwing them around laydowns and heavy cover when you're really close to them. This would be an ideal rod for those things if you were fishing around your trolling motor or trying to make low slung casts. It can be harder with those big long rods. They're designed to be loaded up and kind of cast it a ways out there. So if you're trying to make pitches and like little accurate casts with it, this could be a perfect rod for that. It feels extremely light. I haven't weighed it yet, but this one comes in a little bit, it's just under $200. I believe it's like $170, $180 price point. But it's a unique Swimbait rod. It also features that double style locking nut on the front that I've seen from some of the higher end Swimbait manufacturers. So that could be a feature that's interesting to some of you if you've had issues with your trucks backing off on you. But this is nice because you can put any kind of reel you'd want on this. You wouldn't need to have a dedicated larger Swimbait reel on it. You can put this one here, just happens to be one of my personal reels that I use for bigger baits on it because I don't throw really much stuff and anything really super big right now currently. So this rod balances out nice, feels super light, but it feels like it's more of a technique specific Swimbait rod. It doesn't feel as versatile as the others, but let's go bend it and see if it changes my mind on the wall. All right, as promised on the bend wall here with that 7.3 Tatula Swimbait rod, this thing is 5.5 ounces. I have a gut feeling this is gonna be the lightest Swimbait rod we weigh. That's pretty obvious, right? It's 7.3. It's much smaller looking than the other ones. The blank even looks smaller. It is regular action, just as stated. It's as moderate as can be. It's a little stouter than I felt like it was with just the line on it. I mean, if I just try and bend it with my wrist, it's not by any means super stiff. I've even picked up stiffer flipping sticks for just like, flipping a Texas rig or a big jig, but it's stout. It's powerful. I wouldn't be scared to throw like a Chad shad or something like I've thrown on something like this at all. It is unique that it's this short, and I'm willing to bet that a lot of you tournament anglers that aren't dedicated Swimbait anglers could see a use for this rod. I kind of am personally. I'm liking this thing a lot more with a reel on it and line on it, bending it, than I did just looking at it. I always figured I'd find something more in the middle, like that 7.9 range, bigger, a little bit heavier power than this. So I could kind of cover all my bases with swimbaits that I would get up to. But man, this thing feels legit in hand. If you are going to look for, I would say, just a rod that kind of slides in your rod locker that's not overly big, that's perfect for throwing a big bait around some heavy cover. And I don't see why you'd be at obviously that much of a disadvantage on a long cast with it. I mean, it is obviously, it's not going to throw a giant bait very far, and it is a little soft for some of that really big swim bait stuff. So, this would definitely be, of the rods that we've bent so far, and I think the other ones we're going to bend, more of a technique specific swim bait rod. If you are somebody that's fishing bodies of water that the fish are holding on specific pieces of cover, this would be a rod for your smaller baits and targeting specific pieces of cover. Really cool rod from Daiwa. Kudos to them for doing something a little different. Back with another Swimbait rod in our best of the Swimbait series here, especially the Swimbait rods. This one is from Spro, and this one also is made in America. And I'll tell you what, for the price point on this one, this is a great value, and this is a pretty unique rod in itself. I just got done bending a rod that I said would be the lightest for sure. I was wrong. This is tied with it. It's 5.5 ounces as well, just like that Tatula 7.3 that we bent previously. Also, interesting, this thing is rated even lighter weight than the Tatula, which I would have bet would have been the lightest rated Swimbait rod. This one's only rated up to 3 ounces. It is a heavy power. It's a moderate action. It looks like it doesn't have a ton of guides on it, which is kind of something Kip and myself looked at and thought it was kind of interesting. And the handle seems longer than a lot of the rods in the same kind of length range. But this thing feels alive. It feels like it's almost a shame that you just fish swim baits with it. Like you could do a whole bunch of stuff with it. But this handle is obviously designed, this rod is designed by the folks at Spro and KGB for the Chad Shad. The Chad Shad being like a 2.5 ounce, I think-ish Swimbait, which is the swimbait that, especially of the ones that are kind of readily available out there in the marketplace, is the one I've gained a lot of confidence in, right? I think there's a lot of people like me that are kind of, I wouldn't say new to the swimbait game, but certainly not expert or even hardcore, or even close to a hardcore swimbait angler. It kind of gives us the confidence to say, okay, maybe I will buy a spendy or start buying some spendier ones because I think I get it and I can fish it effectively. This is a rod designed specifically for that. This one's right up my alley. It's growing on me quite a bit ever since we got them here. We've actually turned these a couple times already, and I think we're going to be ordering more in here soon because we're down pretty low in inventory on these again. They're unpainted blanks here. They feel really crisp and light. I don't think you need to put this bigger reel on here either. You could put a smaller reel on here and it'd still feel balanced. This thing feels really, really light in hand. So let's go bend this KGB from Spro, made in America. Cool rod here. Let's see how it does and if this action truly is as moderate as they say. All right, as promised, we're here with that KGB Spro rod and we're going to bend this thing, and it is moderate and it feels really, it did with the line on it. This is one that I kind of felt like it was going to be like this. You know, a lot of times you hear us talk on this wall, it surprises us what the action can be. This one is right in line with what I thought it would be. And I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of had my eyes on this one before we did this bend, and this just reinforces a lot of what I thought. I think this would be a killer rod for me. You know, I'm very interested for the comments in this video, not because I'm asking for a ton of comments like a lot of people do. It's literally more about, we're learning here at Omnia as well. We have a couple anglers here at Omnia that are truly swimbait anglers. They buy a lot of high end, they're part of the drops. They get on top of that stuff. But most of us are not, I would say, avid swimbait anglers. This rod feels to me like something that would be confidence inspiring, that I could throw the type of swimbaits that I currently already have and I have confidence in fishing, and be kind of like a gateway drug into some bigger, heavier duty stuff like the Leviathan stuff I was playing with earlier. Really cool rod from Spro here. I'm impressed with it. It feels like really finessey and light powered for a swimbait rod, but it feels like a universal rod to me that I could deploy a lot of, like even like the Spro Megalojon. That bait's been growing on me, but mag draft style baits, you know, baits with an owner beast hook in it that I'm throwing, the bigger versions of that. I throw a lot of line throughs, bigger line throughs in the spring, and this would be a perfect rod for that. I mean, it really would. That big long handle would be something to get used to, but I understand it the more I throw some of the bigger baits when I get up into that, you know, when I've thrown that 5, 6, 7 ounce style baits. This rod's not rated for that. It's still on the lower end of that scale with that 3 ounce rating. But if you don't already own a Spro Chad, you do yourself a favor and buy one. They are really nice. I've had a lot of good luck with them myself. And this is the rod to throw them with. The Made in America KGB Chad rod from Spro. Back with another rod from Leviathan. And that brings us to the point we wanted to make with this video, to say this is just us dipping our toe in the water of swimbait rods here at Omnia Fishing. We are going to be adding more. It's going to be a slower process than it is typically, where we onboard, you know, tens of, or dozens of brands at a time, you know, with a category. We're going to take our time, kind of pick off some. We really do want to hear from you guys. What are some of the brands out there that are shining, and some of the specific rod models that are really shining? That's why we're doing this video, honestly. Like, this is what we've got right now, and this is what's been selling for us, or what we think's really cool, and we want to hear more. And obviously we realize we have a small swimbait rod assortment compared to some of our competitors out there, and then we want to grow that over time. We realize it's an important category for us here as we add more swim baits. Got to have more swim bait rods, right? I'm going to say so far we're blown away with the Leviathan stuff. This one right here is the one that really made us jump on this bandwagon with Leviathan. This one here is an 8-foot heavy mod fast, rated from 2 to 6 ounces. This thing came in at 7.5 ounces. If you were standing here, is the only way I can make you believe me. Out of all the rods that we've literally picked up, including like the little 7.3s and stuff, this thing feels the lightest. It feels like weightless. It balanced absolutely beautifully. It is a North Fork composite blank, if you didn't hear me on the other one. And it has a double locking chuck on the front, so no problem with bigger reels, with bigger reel seats on. I know I have a smaller one on here, and this reel makes this thing feel insane. I want to put a 1 ounce weight on this thing and just flip with this thing, let alone it be a swimbait rod. It feels powerful, but it feels alive and super light and balanced. Most impressive of the swimbait rods, I think, especially this one feels high end. It feels really high end. Doesn't feel like a bang for your buck rod or anything like that. Even though the price point for an American made rod is really aggressive, it feels super high end. I'm excited to go bend this one on the wall. Let's go check out this Leviathan model here, the 8-foot heavy Mod Fast. All right, we're here with that Leviathan and that 8-foot heavy Mod Fast model. Out of all the rods we picked up, this rod actually this is a personal rod of Nick Mraz that works here at Omnia Fishing. This is one of his personal rods. This thing feels really fast without being on the wall, like when you're just bending it with a line on it. And it makes, I don't know, this, like, I can't keep, I'm kind of glowing about this rod because of all the Swimbait rods we've been bending, this one feels really high end. It's like when you pick up an NRX or the Steez AGS, something like, where you really feel that difference. Like, this thing feels expensive. But man, this is why you have the wall. This is why we bend it. I really thought this thing was going to look a lot faster on the wall than it is. It is absolutely mod fast. It's moderate, you know, and it's way more powerful than I'm making it look there. This one's, you know, just a wrist bend there. That's what you can get out of it. You got to use your armpit to really lay into this one. It's a powerful rod. It feels more powerful than it's even rated at, but up to 6 ounces there, I think that makes this one, I know I've changed my opinion as we got through the videos, but we're really doing this real time, step one by one. This feels like the most versatile of the whole bunch. This one not only feels light enough and just fun enough to fish that I would throw, you know, a 2.5 ounce swimbait all day long, a 2 ounce swimbait, even stuff in a 1.5 ounce, got big enough hooks on it. To me, that'd be my only concern, is it got big enough hooks to handle the power of this rod. But I bet you could throw just about anything you wanted on this thing up to about, you know, probably this is at the high end rating of 6 ounces. That's big for me. And I think that's big for a lot of traditional anglers. You know, I know a lot of you hardcore swim baiters throw a lot bigger stuff than that, but 6 ounces is big for me. That's a big, big bait. And this thing feels like it can handle every bit of that and even lighter stuff. If of all the rods we bet today, this one definitely feels like it's something super special, but it, you know, you're going to pay a little bit more than the other rods we were talking about too. But for a US manufactured rod with high-end componentry, with a high-end blank like this, it's really a pretty aggressive price point, to be honest with you. I love the material they wrap the handles with. The handles feel long. I thought this would be a lot more grabby and maybe stealing my shirt from me all the time. It's not. But it does feel like it would remain tacky or at least grippy for you in the rain. It's got kind of a coated texture on here that it's not like slippery or by any means by that, but I like it because it's not digging into my skin or grabbing my shirt bad. Really cool rod here from Leviathan. This is in that Omega Swimbait series. We've got, I think, 4 rods in this family on the site, even a finesse version we're going to get to later. We're going to be bending more Swimbait rods as we add more to the site. We want to hear your feedback, like I mentioned earlier, on what other Swimbait rod companies and models are out there. I'm going to say, for our dipping our toes in the water of the Swimbait world so far, I'm impressed with the assortment we already have. I don't really see any duds amongst the stuff we bent. There is some, obviously, pretty technique-specific stuff, and there's some versatile stuff, you know? If you like high-end stuff, if that's what you're into, this would be the perfect rod for that all-around Swimbait rod to me. I really like this one. Check out the Leviathan Swimbait rods and all the other Swimbait rods we talked about at OmniaFishing.com.